Welcome to Marriage and Family Spring 2019. I am your teacher, Miss Sonja, and I just wanted to make this little video to give you a little bit of information and a short lecture on Chapter 1. So, sorry for the boring foreground, but I'm just trying to make it simple as I can to start off for now. So, one of the things I do want to let you know is that some of you might have the 7th edition and I have the 8th, and some of you might have the 8th. So from time to time there might be a slight variation, and you'll see that more at the end of the semester. So we can go over that more at that time. Also, I just want to stress how important it is to please read your syllabus thoroughly. Also, review the plagiarism tool. You don't have to do the exercises. I see that many of you did, but just review it. When it comes time to write the papers, it'll be very important that you understand what plagiarism is and what it looks like. Also, if you have any questions about the late work, please review the late work policy. Although the policy may say that we can accept the work up to 2 weeks, it also will say that you lose 5 points every day. So if you have a 10-point assignment and you turn it in late, you still might not get any points. I will definitely be glad to work with you, but I need to know beforehand, all right? There's always sometimes when emergencies come up, but for the most part, let me know ahead of time if there is an issue, okay? Also, just a few things here real quick. As far as Chapter 1, as far as Chapter 1, as I read some of your discussions and comments, when we talk about the Scarborough 11, it was very interesting, and many of you commented on that. As I shared with some of you, I wouldn't even know what the city ordinances are. The only time I really checked into that is because I wanted to put a fence around my property. So, there's always what I call those Gladys Kravitz people, which you guys are probably all too young to relate to from Bewitched. But that Snoopy person in the neighborhood. And why anybody would be concerned about their situation, I don't know. But that was very interesting. Now, those city ordinances were created for a reason in the past, so that they didn't have, like they might call flop houses. But in their situation, they were far from that. I don't know if any of you took the time, but the city actually dropped their suit against them, and so they were able to stay where they were living. Okay. So I did want to mention that. Also, I want to mention, please read your directions carefully. Very important to read the directions very carefully. If you have any questions, please email me. In addition to that, read your feedback. Okay, read your feedback. On these first discussions, if you didn't do very well, I would suggest that maybe read some of the submissions of your peers and look over and see the ones that you feel might help you to be more of that style. For your discussions, I just want you to talk to me. Tell me what you read. I don't need you to just tell me what a private family is or a public family is. I already know that. But how does that apply to your life? Be careful of your verbiage. Don't keep saying, I find this interesting. I find this interesting. Okay, you find it interesting, but tell me what is it interesting about it to you. Definitely avoid the phrase, which I got a lot of, is not just this time, but in the past as well. Back in the day. What does that mean? I have no idea. Was back in the day the 60s or the 70s, or was it the 1800s? We're definitely an evolving society, and in the United States, we're actually a very young society. But families have been around since the beginning of the time. So if you're going to refer back, be very specific of what you're referring to, but avoid phrases like that's interesting, more and more and more. Just state what you think. The discussion should be easy breezy. It's just you telling me what you think and feel and how maybe it applies to your life. Don't get caught up in it's 2 paragraphs or this many sentences. It's like a free writing exercise. Just share. And if you do it that way, I think it'll go much easier. So as you're reading, you might want to note, wow, that's interesting, and then talk about it, or gee, that happened in my life, or I saw somebody go through this. Those are the kind of discussions that are going to get the best grades. Then the other thing I just want to mention about chapter 1 is I'm going to point out throughout the year some things that I catch in the text that are very subtle, and I don't believe that they mean to be maybe, how do I want to say it? They're very subtle things that can influence people, and I did see this in the past. You're going to see when we read this book a lot of references to African American communities, and oftentimes the African American communities are referenced as poor African American communities. Unfortunately, it's a problem in sociology that the African American community is studied, but only the poor people are studied. There's very few studies that are about middle class or upper class African Americans. So what I have found in the past is students interpret that all African Americans are poor, and that is not the case. Also, for anybody who has version edition 8, if you look on page 16, although it's very subtle, when they talk about the SNAP program, they use the female pronoun and saying how much she receives dependent on how large her official family definition is. You have to be very careful about that. The author would have been better to use more of a neutral pronoun and not just the female pronoun. And you'll see this throughout the book. So we can talk about that more later, or if you see something that you found that struck you in a certain way that you didn't feel was maybe appropriate, please let me know. I'm interested to get your feedback. On page 26, when they're talking about observational study, they talk about Herbert Gaines when he went into the Italian neighborhood. I want to point out to you that the sociologist who first developed that method of observational studies was W.E.B. Du Bois, and he did that many, many years before that, and really is considered one of the fathers of sociology. So there's going to be some things that I'm going to give you extra information about that you might not know, but I think it is important that you do know where some of these roots are. So again, welcome. I've appreciated some of your scholarship already. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any problems or questions. You best to reach me through email, since I'm not actually on campus and I don't have an office or a phone number there. And I look forward to having a great semester. Thank you.